So with the biggest update just around the corner, we're looking at another important year for No Man's Sky. And you know what that means? It means a ton of new players as well as former ones will join us once more in our amazing space adventures. So if you're just now starting up No Man's Sky for the very first time or have done so in the past and want to get back on track, well, today is your lucky day because I'm going to bring you 20 tips and tricks for total beginners. And to make things even better, for those of you who are still not yet convinced if you should try this game, we also have an awesome giveaway that was made possible thanks to Instant Gaming. By following the link down below, you can get a chance at winning any game you want. It can be No Man's Sky obviously, but you are free to pick something else if you want to. And to make sure nobody has any regrets, I'm also going to put in a discount link if you want to buy games cheap from the same website. For example, No Man's Sky is 55% off with that link, and since it's an affiliate link, you would also help this channel in the process. But anyway, I hope you guys are having an amazing day, so let's get started with the actual list. At number 1, before starting to actually play, change the following settings if you want a smoother experience. First, set the flight controls under the General tab to locked for a more responsive ship maneuvering. This is my go-to setting as it definitely makes flight feel a little bit more responsive than, for example, using tethered. Then under the graphics options, the only two changes I recommend here are turning off VSync, which I always set to off because for some reason it affects performance in my case. Similarly, set max FPS to max or unlimited or uncapped, no matter if your actual FPS in-game doesn't go over 60, for example. Finally, in the network menu, pay close attention, especially to the options that have to do with getting damage from other players during multiplayer or getting your base parts deleted. And I strongly recommend, at least in the case of deleting base parts, to always be set to no one so you don't risk losing your base in case somebody else tries to grief you. Also, don't forget to turn off voice chat in case you have a microphone and don't want somebody else to hear you by accident. Now at number 2, and especially for new players, do yourself a favor and learn the melee boost trick as soon as you get in the game. This is done by using the melee attack, sprint and jetpack buttons at roughly the same time. For the PC users, this would be W, Q, Shift and spacebar all together. And if you do so, you will traverse the planet's surface much faster than the usual. Be careful though, don't waste all of your fuel in one jump. While descending, gradually press spacebar to slightly boost you ahead and let gravity do the work for you. And if you don't want to get any fall damage, keep the last bit of fuel right before you land and you should be fine. At number 3, also for faster movement, keep an eye out for planets that have something called deuterium-rich plants. These are blue single plants that appear on your scanner as blue leaves, and once you consume one, you will get about 10 seconds of not just infinite jetpack, but also higher jump and speed. So you can further combine this with the previous trick, with the melee boost trick, and you will almost feel like Superman, except with jetpacks, which pretty much means you would be Iron Man. Anyway, at number 4, another cool trick you need to learn early on, especially due to its usefulness, is infinite mining. For multi-tools, use the mining beam up until the heat bar starts filling up, then let go the mouse button for a split second and you'll be able to do this almost infinite without ever overheating. For spaceships, it's pretty similar, but it works even better. Of course, it only works for the mining beam, and the way you do it is basically you need to hold and press the mouse button only for like a split second and then let it go as you mine stuff. So for example, do it like every half a second or so and you will never overheat. As you can see here on the screen, I'm doing it continuously, and even though the bar is showing it's a little bit, filling over there, it's definitely flickering for a split second, which means I'm letting my mouse go. So yeah, there you have it. At number 5, oftentimes you will find mineable rocks or plants that list 2 kinds of rewards under their name. One of them might be anything like ferrite dust, carbon and so on, while the second one will most definitely be a string made out of several question marks. That is of course a bonus resource, and you will earn it if you analyze that particular rock or plant before mining it. It only works of course if you scan it first, so go ahead and do that and you will get that extra loot. Coming up at number 6, the first few hours of your new playthrough are always going to require you to mine a ton of minerals. So why not prepare in advance, and if you have the chance, fill this list with at least a few hundreds of each material, as it will definitely prove useful later on. These are of course ferrite dust from random rocks, carbon from random plants, oxygen from oxygen-rich plants, and dihydrogen from the blue crystals on the ground. Eventually, after building the terrain tool, you will also run into big deposits like copper and magnetized ferrite. So if you have this upgrade and see these deposits, go ahead and mine them as well, because they are definitely going to be useful for the better part of the beginning 10 hours. And number 7, early on you'll get acquainted with something called the portable refiner, which is going to be extremely useful as it helps you create more advanced versions of certain elements or even create new ones. And since it's portable, this means you can place it anywhere you want to and also pick it back up into your backpack. It works very simple by simply using a source material that you want to refine and a source of fuel, which in this case can be carbon or condensed carbon. Once both of these are set up, you can then use the arrows to change the number of the resulting material you want refined, and then press and hold the start button to make it process. Once the process is finished, which can take up to 1 or 2 minutes, you can take the resulting material and transfer it back into your inventory and build whatever you want to build with it. Moving on to number 8, as soon as you unlock base building and get to use the blueprint analyzer, make sure you first unlock the base teleporter, as this is probably the most useful early on tool you can have. You might not have the materials to build it right away, but it won't take long until you get to use it and get it up and running, and it's extremely useful as it lets you teleport to any space station or other bases you might have set up. The second one, of course, would be the save point. This is also portable and it lets you pretty much save anywhere on a planet's surface, especially so in case you're too far away from your ship or don't want to rely on it to save your game. And number 9, since we've talked about unlocking base blueprints, you of course need tech modules to do so. Most blueprints cost 2 or 3 salvage modules, and you can find these by searching buried tech modules using of course your analysis visor. Once you find the closest one, head over to it, dig it up using the terrain tool, and then just open the box for some sweet tech module. Coming up at number 10, I mentioned bases earlier, and you would be surprised just how useful the base computers are nowadays. So the computers themselves can also be picked up as long as you don't set up a base or chose the option to delete the existing one, and this means you can place down a base computer and set up a base at a point of interest and then come later back to it using a teleporter point. So let's say for example you find an awesome outpost that spawns an amazing multi-tool, or a trading post where a certain ship spawns, or maybe you just want a fast point towards a portal tower. Well, you can just set up the computer itself and even rename that base to something that gives you an idea of why you set it up. For example, you can give it a name, something like amazing multi-tool here or something along those lines. At number 11, you will use the signal beacon quite often, both for finding out your current coordinates as well as for scanning for important stuff, such as for example distress signals or alien structures. For the most part, you will need navigation data, which can be acquired in various ways, but by far the fastest and easiest is to do it at a space station. You can get that as well as nanites from the blue and orange cubes, as well as the black discs you find randomly lying around the various tables and desks, and these do spawn randomly, so check all the rooms, including the ones in the back, as well as the desks right in front of the various vendors. Now, speaking of space station and teleporting, and number 12, whenever you visit a space station, make sure to also click on the teleporter inside. Even if you don't use it, it will open up a relay point to that system, which means it will appear in your list of teleport locations in case you want to come back to that particular system later on. At number 13, we've talked about farming and building, but early on there's another thing you will need in large amounts, and that is money. While I won't make a full guide on it in this video, I will mention a couple of methods, mainly because you will get in contact with them anyway through some of the early missions. First of all is to steal the alien eggs in the abandoned building once you get the missions to pick the data from inside the terminal. These eggs can be found outside and they sell for almost 70,000 units each, and just a couple of them will set you out for good in the beginning hours. Do mind the alien horrors though, as they will spawn in high numbers as soon as you attack the eggs, and they can pretty much 2 or 3 shot you with ease. The same applies with the first mission that brings you to the crashed freighter or any freighter afterwards. Buried beneath the ground there's always going to be cargo pods filled with money or warp cells, either getting like 50 or 100,000 units, or some warp cells or something else extremely useful in the beginning. Now of course this doesn't mean you need to start spending units right away, and in fact you will get something very useful and free within the first 2 hours of playing. This brings me to the 14th tip on the list, and that is of course your first freighter ever is going to be free of charge. You will encounter it after a few hours of playtime and a few system warps, and of course you will need to free one freighter from the attacking pirate ships, and then you will be prompted to go inside, speak with the captain, and you will get your prize, which is of course in this case the freighter itself. Now if you really want to be a fox, you can refuse getting the first freighter if you don't like how it looks or if you don't like its stats, such as for example waiting for an amazing S-class capital ship. You can definitely do that and postpone your freighter acquisition, but honestly that is very luck dependent, and in the beginning hours I definitely recommend you guys picking whatever you are given, as later into the game you will afford any freighter you want to, as you will make a ton of money anyway. At number 15, if you ever found yourself in the middle of the storm with nowhere to hide from the harsh environment, then you can use the terrain editor tool to quickly dig yourself a hole into the ground, and no, that will not be your grave, that would be just another shelter you can create. And this is especially useful on permadeath, when something as common as a storm can pretty much end your game right there. So just dig a few feet into the ground and you can enter inside that cave and the temperature will stabilize. At number 16, try to craft an Atlas Pass V1 as soon as possible. You get this at random from the first couple of missions from Polo or from a manufacturing facility. It lets you unlock cargo drops early on, which are super useful for creating warp cells as it drops its components. At number 17, as you will eventually start a conflict with a Sentinel for various reasons, here's a few ways you can get rid of them without even fighting. From 1 star to 3 stars, this could be as easy as hiding behind a large tree or a rock or inside a cave. You will eventually drop the wanted level after the timer runs out. But for 4 and 5 stars respectively, you might want to jump in your ship and fly without exiting the planet's atmosphere until at least the 1 minute timer runs off, so you make sure you lose track of all of the sentinels. However, if your wanted level was generated while in space, then you can escape the sentinels by simply outrunning them and not engaging in fight with them whatsoever, or of course by going inside the nearby space station, freighter or planet's atmosphere. At number 18, I suggest early on to not carry anything valuable in either your ship's inventory or backpack, as pirates will detect that and will oftentimes engage with you. And since early on you tend to be outnumbered by these pirates and not have good enough weaponry to take them off, this might cause them to wipe you out and make you lose your items. Instead, either sell these valuables at the nearest space station or outpost, or store them inside of the freighter until you want to use them once more. Generally speaking, any stack of over 50,000 units will attract pirates' attention, so be mindful of that. If you have no choice but to engage them, then your only option here is to either fight back or hope you're close enough to a space station, freighter or planet to enter it. This brings me to the number 19 spot and a couple of combat tricks I have for you guys in case you have to engage with somebody during space combat, and the best way to get rid of them is to shoot them either in the back or in the sides of the ship. These are considered crit points and will take down enemies much faster than shooting them, for example, in the front of their ship, and also positioning yourself behind them isn't really that hard. Finally, at number 20, there's a few upgrades that I recommend you get as early as possible. These are of course the movement modules and the shield upgrades, especially the movement modules, which are by far the most useful. So whenever you find yourself inside a space station, check the merchant in the back, as it will always have something in the S-class category, and just an upgrade with this will increase your jetpack's usefulness tremendously and make traversals so much easier and more fun. But that's been today's list, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed it. There's a ton more tips and tricks I could have made, but I don't really want to make this video like 20 minutes long or half an hour long. So if you want more, comment down below and I will make more videos on this. Also hit the like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time, so peace out.